Well, happy Tuesday, everybody. Welcome to the pre-show of the Intrepid radio program. Ellery kept reminding me, she said, keep reminding, tell me when you're going live before the show goes live. She wanted to come and chank her gum at you and say hi.
Hi.
So there you go. You're chanking that gum like a Lake Street hooker, which you don't know what that is, so that's a good thing. So.
Is it a stripper?
No, mom's a stripper, not a hooker.
No, she's not.
Did you know of?
How come? Yeah.
How come there's no chat room? Because I didn't click on the chat room button. There it is. See? Leslie says hi.
Hi.
We got really bright overheads on tonight, but that's okay. People are doing stuff over on the other side. So, hey, Matthew Sainsbury and Matt Finn. Uncle Dave is here already. Good to see you. Don't bump the mic, please. That actually carries over the sound. You can hear pff, pff, pff in the sound. So that gum smells like a candy store. Don't. Invasion of my private space. I'll get out my crucifix and you'll be in real trouble then. Hey, Barbie D.
What's that?
That's Matthew Sainsbury.
Hi, Matthew.
There's Rowan back there. They're taking advantage of their moments to come on. Very nice. Where'd you get that?
Grandma's house.
They're from Grandma's house. That's what I thought. Yeah. So I think we're all set. I'm going to go and click the button. Oh, where's my black headset? Still missing from yesterday. You guys, whoever takes that, I'm not proud of you and I don't approve. That hasn't come up since we started radio last night. And I realized my headset was missing. Because it always sits right here. That's where I leave it, so I know where it is every day. And one of you comes and takes stuff off my desk because you all come and mess with my desk.
I never used headsets of yours. Okay?
So there are little things that Leslie says, tell me where my headset is. They don't know. They take it and use it and drop it on the floor somewhere. That's just modus operandi around here. So, I don't know. You'll find it. I'll find it in a pile of clothes or in garbage somewhere or in somebody's room under the bed. That's where it'll turn up. So that's like my plug-in for my phone. I've got one specific one that I've used for months since we moved into this house. All of a sudden it was gone the other day. I had no way. I went to bed at night. There was nowhere to plug my phone in for the night. And it was lucky I had one stashed in hiding. Of course, you ask around the house, who's here? I'm going to move you over here. The reason I keep moving you, you keep crowding me and you don't sit still.
I want to know what that says.
It says, Ellery, you must always chew like a lady, not a cow. And so I was lucky I had the one stashed. Otherwise, I wouldn't have anything to plug my phone in with. I asked around. Nobody in this house knows where it is. Nobody saw it. Nobody moved it. It's just gone. It just disappeared.
Yeah.
All right. We're getting ready to go dark so we can start this show, guys, in 10 seconds. So I'll be back in a few seconds. We'll see you then. Say goodnight, Ellery.
Are you looking for a really awesome and amazing graphic designer? How about an illustrator or a photographer? This is Rainey Roberts, and I wanted to tell you how you can get my designer, illustrator husband, Scotty Roberts, to work for you on your project. Do you have an awesome self-published book but no cover, or even worse, a cover that really sucks? Do you need a kick-ass logo for your company or some f***ing awesome graphic designs for your ads or website? Then get in touch with my husband for the best f***ing awesome kick-ass design and illustration. He knows his stuff, and he's been at this for more years than I've been alive. Go to ScottAllenRoberts.com. That's Scott with 2 T's, ALANROBERTS.com to take a look at his online portfolio of work, or call 651-468-8115. Now go out and kick some ass with some kick-ass graphic design.
Hire my dad, so he can take me to Disneyland.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent Talk.
Hey folks, welcome. It is Tuesday night, and I want to welcome you. Happy Tuesday. So those of you who are here for the pre-show, you already heard that once. Now you've heard it twice. Welcome to the Intrepid radio program right here on Odyssey Radio. That's ODYSY radio.com. Remember, it's spelled a little differently than the actual word. Is Odyssey one of those words for you, like for me, who I like words, I like language, but Odyssey was always tough for me to spell, the actual word, like from Odysseus, you know, the Odyssey, and you go ODYSSEY, no, that's odd, Odysseys. And so ODYSY radio.com. Come on over, see all the goodness that's Odyssey Radio. And at the same time tonight, if you're listening here on the YouTube channel, you are seeing also the simulcast in video, and you can join, if you so elect to do so, to join the chat room. And it's the chat room with the other Intrepids. You can come in, chat away, talk away, and meet other. I don't even know what I'm going to say next. That's why I went and because I didn't know where I was going with that. Come on over, join the other Intrepids in the chat room, and you can also go over to Facebook to Odyssey Radio's page, and it's just facebook.com/Odyssey Radio. And you can see this same broadcast and video over there with a chat room there. Although most of us, since I have too many things already for a simpleton such as I to have to operate, we are, and see, like tonight, I said that and I realized I didn't hit the record button for my audio. So now the audio's recording, picking up right there. So how many minutes are we into the show? 4 minutes in, and I realized I didn't start recording my audio for the archive because it doesn't do it all automatically. So you got to hit all these buttons. So now that's going. So we're good there. And I don't know what else to say about any of that other than if you are in the YouTube chat room, if you're watching this over on YouTube, go down below the window, hit the join button. You can join my YouTube channel. And there's more there than just this show, but you get the idea. Hit the channel. You can become a member. Doesn't cost a thing. But then there are levels of membership. Go check them out if you want to become a member of my channel over there. And I do want to say a word about, because I haven't been hitting this lately until the after show, the Captain's Cabin. If you have heavily, easy for me to say. If you have not yet, it's the Captain's Cabin, says Rainey. Cabinet, the Captain's Cabinet. I've been hitting the Captain's Cabinet, she says. Play on words that I missed right away because it was talking. Hit the fall apart button and we'll all console you. Hit the fall apart button and we'll all console you. Thank you. Thank you. I wanted to make sure I read that right. What was I going to say? Oh, The Sword in the Clay. You all know about the book. If you're a listener to this show and you've heard parts of the book, some of you heard me read the entire book on this show. And it's a short book. It's about 8,000 words, which is roughly 83 pages, the way I've laid it out. And I've laid it out so we got wide margins and it's short to read. I do that so parents who want to read this to kids don't look at it and go, oh my God, there's a whole page left. So if you're a parent, you know what I mean. Dad, read this book for me. And you pick up the book and you start kind of flipping through the pages in advance going, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God, that chapter is 14 pages long. So, it's what we do. So I try to write my books in a way that are easy for parents to read them to kids. Now you might think The Sword in the Clay, is that a kid's book? Well, it's kind of a kid's book. It's an adult book with a story that's appropriate for kids if parents want to read it to them. Does it deal with harsh topics? Yeah, it deals with death. There are wars in their battles, ancient battles, things like that. There's the World War I is in there. There's death in it and all of those things. But those are things parents can read to their kids. Remember when we had the little series last week or the week before on kids need horror. Kids need horrific things to be read to them, to read, and so on, only to a certain point. You don't want to go too far with that, but kids need to learn how to, and kids do learn how to cope with certain things in life by reading a good horror story. Now, this isn't a horror story, but there's ghosts in it. There's death in it. There's things like that, but it's still a good story and there's good things to learn. So if you have not heard any of that, you can, on this very YouTube channel, you can scroll backwards and you can find some of the readings that I did for the book while we did the Kickstarter campaign. And I want to let you know, all that lead up to say there's 2 places now where you can buy this book. You can go over to my website, which is www, if you need me to say that, you're behind the times, but just go to the title of the book, theswordintheclay.com, theswordintheclay.com. And you will see the place to purchase the book and other things that you can get there. You can get the autographed copy of the book. You can get the bookmarks, the tumblers. So there's other things over there that you can avail yourself of, which were premium rewards for over on the Kickstarter page. So you can do that. You can also go to our Amazon page, which we just put up. That book will also now be available on Amazon. And now all you can get at Amazon is just the book itself. There's no add-ons over at Amazon. And you have to pay for your shipping over there. Just like you have to do on my site. You got to pay for shipping on the Sword in the Clay site. So you can go either of those 2 places. And I think there is a... oh, there. Leslie put it up. I got to put on my glasses. Otherwise, I got to lean in and squint. Leslie put up the Amazon link. Thank you, Leslie. There it is. And Matt Finn also put that up. Thank you, Master Finn, my first in command over in the chat room over on our YouTube channel. My first mate. I hope you got a hogshead full of mead ready for Captain's cabin tonight. And especially Friday coming. So there you go. Sword in the Clay. That's available. I would love it if you'd pick that book up. And you can do that by going one of those 2 places. Also, at theswordintheclay.com, you can click and see other books that are in progress. You can see links to other things. You can see more about the book itself. And so it's not a complete, well-rounded overall site. It's a very simplistic site that offers you stuff about the book and about what's coming up. So Matthew says, if it is, I'll buy it for now, and I'll take Ghost Have Warm Hands tomorrow when I read you. Well, you can do whatever you'd like there, Matthew. Ghosts Have Warm Hands is a good book. I know that's a little rarer than my book since mine's brand new. So let's see. Buys the book, sends it to Scotty, says, "Here, John Hancock, it pays for postage back." There you go. Yeah, if you deciphered that, that's exactly what Field Guide meant. If you want. If you buy it on Amazon, you'll get it shipped to you. Just you'll have to send it to me with postage for return. And I'll sign the book for you. If you order it from the website instead of Amazon, we can sign those in advance. So that's all on that. It's becoming a long ad. Also, I wanted to mention something else. Now, I talked about the Star Trek set tour trip in the captain's cabin last night. If you want to do that, contact me privately. It's being sponsored by Russ Hosledge. He's the old owner of Odyssey Radio. And if you don't know anything about this, go to StarTrekTour.com. StarTrekTour.com. That's where we're going. It's up in Fort Ticonderoga, New York. Thank you very much. It's not my headset, but it will do. I know. Lean in and say hi, Rainey, my beautiful wife. There she is. Boom.
Hi.
She found a headset for me. So we're going to diminish the... Will you do me a huge favor and plug that in when you go to the backside? Yes, you may. Here, I'll hand it to you. So they're going to plug in my headset for me so we don't have the echoing. You hear just a minor echo going on here.
You also have all your sets of these over here.
None of those work, believe it or not. So there we go. Now it's echoing only in my ear. And you don't have to be, hopefully that you didn't hear all of that. Tour or tower? I'm confused. What do you think, Dave? Star Trek, none of those over there seem to work.
Okay,
There's
6 pairs I just threw away.
Yeah. And so
I wonder we're hoarders. You don't throw old shit away.
it's just sitting in a pile over there. All the old, that's the day I went through all my headsets and said, none of these work. Where's my real one? So, yeah, that's what we've got. We've got earbuds. We got earbuds aplenty in this house. 1% of which actually work. So, the Star Trek tour set. Tour. How'd you get tower out of tour? Like I had some weird accent or something, Uncle Dave. So, you can go check it out. This is the reconstruction from the original blueprints, the Desilu Studios blueprints from the 60s of the Star Trek sets. And they've been upgraded. It's been used for fan films and stuff, and they've got it meticulously lighted. And so it's a fun place. I've not been there yet. So it's going, that's in September 24th. So put it on your calendars. Check it out. And you can talk to either Russ or me, and I'll just pass you on to Russ because he's handling the details of all of that. And I think it costs, once we're there, admission is $38. So, and that's a good deal. He gave us a group rate on that. So Star Trek Tour in Glastonbury Tower. Tor, Dave, T-O-R, with the tower on top of the Tor. So it's Tour, Tower, Tor. Wow. Look for your little ironies in life, all the things that converge in weird ways in life. That's pretty amazing. So a Star Trek Tour and Glastonbury Tower sounded the same out of your mouth. Glastonbury Tour. Glastonbury, that's because I've said Glastonbury Tour. That can come out like tour. Tower has a definite ow in it. So, there you go. There's my announcements for the day. I do want to express just to my listeners how sad I am for my daughter Bryn. Her some people don't understand this, some people do. She has a couple of those hairless pharaoh cats, they call them, with the long, like Siamese cat, pointy ears, and they're hairless and they're just sweet. She's had Picard for a long time, and she had Minnie. They got a couple of years ago, and she had her in for a routine procedure today. Abby was with her. and they gave her some anesthetic, and she had an adverse reaction to the anesthetic and died of coronary arrest. And my daughter Abby was talking to me a little while ago. Now, remember, these are my twin daughters, and they have been not literally, but figuratively joined at the hip since the day they were born. They all the mystique about twins. Well, they have it. And she said she has never seen Bryn so devastated as she did today. And she never has witnessed anything like that before, she said. And so it just crushed her. And I feel very bad. I haven't even talked to Bryn yet today. So my heart goes out to my daughter on that. And if any of you have pets and you've been attached to them, you might know what that's like. So it's a very sad day there. And I have yet to talk to Bryn. And because I just found out about this really relatively within the last hour. So
4 kids too. It's like losing a kid, man.
Yeah.
That's terrible.
Yeah. It's like losing a kid because they don't have kids. So
Fur babies.
That's their fur babies. And they're always posting pictures. Zach, the cats are all cuddled up to him and sleeping on him and stuff. These hairless cats. They're cool cats. And Picard, I got to know Picard pretty well when I was out there a few years ago painting on the mural. And they've gotten Minnie since I was there. So they've only had her for a couple of years. So it's pretty sad for them. So if you love your pets, you know what that's like. I don't know that it's the same as losing a person, but you try to tell that to somebody who loses a close pet like that they love, and you're not going to get very far. So there you go.
How devastated I was when I lost Mocha before I had kids.
Right. I remember Rennie had her little Chihuahua, Mocha, that she had brought into our house before we had kids. And that little tiny Chihuahua, when she died, Rennie was just crushed. And her ashes, we've still got her ashes in a box in a velvet bag somewhere around here. And if that makes it sound cheap, a velvet bag, a velvet pouch with the drawstrings on it. So we've still got that around. My heart goes out to Bryn and Zach. Yeah. Thank you, Michelle Canham. Free. She'll be fine, says Field Guy. Get another cat and move on. Shrugs. Yeah, that's heartless. Don't do that, Field Guy. That's the way we want to act about that stuff. We go, oh, it's just a cat.
It's not how it works when you're a chick.
And it's not how it works when you're a chick, Rainey just said. So my wife said that, not me. For those listening who think chick is a derogatory term for women, yeah, you can't be that way about it. Discussions about death are never easy, says Sarah Yusuf over in the chat room. And yeah, the death of an animal for people who are very attached to their animals, and that's a different thing for them. I get that. Now, they didn't dress them in little clothes and have them eat at the dinner table or anything like that. They weren't weird about their pet ownership, but they loved their animals. So it's very sad for my daughter. And to hear that she was so devastated, I'm almost afraid to call her up for fear that I'm not going to make it through that conversation. So I'm more concerned about my daughter in this than the cat, and though I feel her pain in this. So loss is loss and grief is grief, says Michelle, and over in the chat room. And yes, you're absolutely right. Loss is loss and grief is grief. And somebody else's cat, you don't think the same way, but yeah, I need to call her. I do. And I'm not going to call her yet tonight because it's pretty late. They're an hour. By the time we're off of this show, it's already 11 p.m. there. I might text her, and if she's awake, I'll call her. But I didn't find out. Yeah, go ahead. I didn't find out about it until not long before the show, so I didn't get a chance to call her. But I'll call her probably first thing in the morning. Yeah, Rowan's going to call her right now. She just came and got my phone to call her. So anyway, there we go. That's a little bit of something. And, maybe we'll talk about that someday, the closeness that people can get with their cats, with their dogs, with their pets, with their close. I saw a video today of a little girl who maybe about 10, 11 years old, who went to visit a farm where her old donkey that she raised from a colt recognized her, that she hadn't seen in years, and came running to her, just doing the noise that donkeys, the braying they do, and put its head against her head and closed its eyes and put its head on her shoulder, and was just nuzzling her. And you see that kind of thing, and sometimes in animals we don't see that kind of closeness. Other times we do. It all depends, I think, on the individual animal. And I remember, and we mentioned this just recently, but in reading through something, but even in biblical terms, doesn't it say that God grieves when a sparrow falls? It's his creation. It's something he made. And, if you're of that belief system, he says the very sparrows don't fall, but God is grieved in his heart. Now, was that some prophet writing about that to give us more insight into God as he saw him, or is that something that's true about God? I tend to think I got into this conversation theologically with somebody years ago who said, poo-pooed the idea that dogs can go to heaven. Now, remember, this is in the context of speaking of Christianity, Judeo-Christianity, that there's an afterlife, that God has a heaven that we go to, like a nirvana or a Valhalla or someplace like that. And so I think, and I made a case biblically to this person who was guffawing at the idea. He raised horses and other animals, but he treated them like commodities because that's what he did. And he sold horses, bought and sold, broke horses, and so on. And he's an old cowboy from Wyoming, and he was guffawing at the fact that I thought animals might go to heaven. And I said, I think there is a theological basis for it. That God, when I have asked the question before, and I want you to think about this for a second: are you a dichotomist or a trichotomist? And some people go, "What the hell is that?" Well, theologically speaking, a dichotomist, body and soul, and a trichotomist is body, soul, and spirit. That the soul and spirit are different things, and I think animals might be dichotomous in the sense that they have bodies, physical bodies, and they have souls. But then you have theologically in the book of Genesis at the creation of man that God breathed into man the breath of life, and man became a living soul. So I'm sorry, I got that around. The dichotomy is the body and the spirit, and then there's body, spirit, and soul. That the soul is something that God gave humans, but that we all have the bodies and we all have the spirits, and the spirits that exist after death. And there's something, I'll look it up, and we'll maybe do a little show on that one time to talk about this, is that the God of the Bible honors the spirits of fallen animals and remembers them and knows them by name, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So Dave Potter says over in the chat room, yeah, the twins, my daughters, have a great bond with the little ones. I love that they call each other all the time, and the twins will take time out of their busy days to chat with them about whatever they wish. Yeah, I like that. My daughters have maintained a very close relationship with Rainey's and my kids, which is really technically only their half brother and half sisters, but they don't see it that way. They don't operate that way. They don't recognize the half part. They say, this is Dad and Rainey's kids. These are my brother and my sisters. And they've always been that way and always treated them that way, which is amazing. You can look at your pet's eyes and see a soul, says Sarah Yusuf. But like Rainey said, not when they're shitting on your carpet. That's when I want to boot them in the ass and kick them outside. You live outside from now on. Don't you piss on my carpet. So, yeah. Hey, Niall Parkinson. This is fascinating, says Niall. But Christ himself preached a simple message which he even did not understand. We presume he did. Well, there you go. I think you're right about that. I think there were parts of his message he didn't understand, but he preached it because he knew it in his heart that this was what was so. And it was so different. We've been talking the last few days about the what the heck? I'm just going blank on the words right now. When we're talking about, we were talking about Avalon and the story, and we're talking about medieval mindsets, the narrative that's there, the narrative theory. It's that cognitive mindset that's been there, that cognitive narrative, that goes on. Some of these legends that we talked about were all things that took place under a certain mindset. Good night, my small child interrupting on radio. I love you. I love you too. All right. I'll see you tomorrow, baby. I love you. All right. So there you go. Hey, Paul Roney. Good to see you in the chat room. Oh, it's Patch. Good to see you. It's been a long time, Patch Malone. Good to see you in here. Dave Potter, Rainey says even he misses Mocha. So there you go. And so this is all something we'll talk about another time. I believe that if human life, if there is an afterlife and we go on, we have spirits, I believe the animal kingdom is also the same way. If we are all just a more advanced portion of the animal kingdom, and come on, you can't deny that. We are more advanced. There aren't too many animals in the animal kingdom that, some of them build beaver dams. Some of them build dens and warrens. But how many of those dens and warrens have a television in that animals have developed? Or radio signals that the animal kingdom has developed? They might have natural forms of that. But what I'm saying is humans have been able to do things, have been able to go beyond develop technology. Not too many in the animal kingdom that can develop technology. So there are differences, whether people want to argue that there aren't or not. That would be my argument with PETA. Is that, yeah, there are differences. Sorry. There's huge differences between animals and humans. We are a higher form of animal, if you will. We can judge that or gauge that based on the actions of human civilization, but we are a higher form of animal on the planet. But we can still be eaten by a lion if we're naked out in the wilderness. Just wanted to let you know that. So Naked and Afraid, that show, I've watched it a few times. Rainey likes to watch that show, likes to binge watch it. I told her she just likes to see the butts of naked guys. And, but, it's all right. Niall says Christ was and is the vessel, but his mission was easily misunderstood. And if you're not sure what you mean to say, you turn to hyperbole and metaphor. That's very true. Well, tonight I wanted to try to kind of wrap up this little series, and all of this was a segue into what we're talking about tonight. And I wanted to try to wrap up this little series we have going on Morgan Le Fay, or Morgaine of Avalon, if you will, and wrap up this thing that we've been talking about as far as oppression, as far as the narrative in which the stories and the myths and the legends were originally coined. And so we're taking ourselves from the outside world and putting ourselves into the story that was written. And for a certain reason, we've been kind of focusing on Marion Zimmer Bradley's The Mists of Avalon, which is an amazing book, and I would recommend it to anyone. I think that was the crowning glory of all her writing. Now, there are some, I watched a little video last night after the show when I was kind of winding down. A solitary practitioner of Wicca is what I think she was, but she had her little podcast, and I was watching. She was kind of giving a little review of the Mists of Avalon, and she was very careful not to mention, I don't know if she mentioned Marion Zimmer Bradley by name, because there is something and there's power in the name and giving power to the name. But she was very tentative when it came to giving praise to the book or even sending people to read the book because of some of the scandalous things that were found out about Marion Zimmer Bradley after her death. She passed away in 1999. Believe that or not, that's 23 years ago already. But there was the scandal. Her daughter, grown daughter in 2014, came out and said that her mother was engaged in sexual abuse of her and her brother, that they were involved in all sorts of things, that their dad, Marion Zimmer Bradley's husband, was a convicted pedophile and had been eventually released after his sentencing, and that Marion Zimmer Bradley protected him. The feminist that she was and the things she wrote about, she still protected him. And she had certain beliefs about sexuality and so on. And I don't know enough of that story to give it any kind of credit, but I looked into that a bit, and there is a lot written about that. They talked about the tarnishing of a wonderful career, where she wrote the books on Avalon, and she wrote all sorts of other things. And so that's too bad to find that out. You find it out and you go, do you promote the books of a person who had this scandal that arose posthumously, 14, 15 years after her death? And her own daughter said, the only reason I didn't come out with this sooner is I didn't want to offend all of my mother's followers and readers. So during the time my mother was alive and shortly after, and she waited 15 years. And so, you can only go by what, and there's witnesses and people that say things and so on. You don't know what to think of that stuff. So all that to say is that there was enough verification of it that it seems to be the scandal that has left a tarnish on her. Whatever the degree of damn Democrats protection. Yeah, there you go, says Chance Sanders. So Paul Roney says, sorry guys, stepped out a sec. I'm living in my car because I always get shit from Satan. Effing up my life. Gotta quit being nice. And man, I hear that, Patch. Sorry to hear that, brother. So Matt Finn in the chat room says, these types of people engage in ritualistic sex magic. Pretty prevalent with some circles of the elites. Yeah, and Marion Zimmer Bradley was an affirmed pagan for many years. Now, the last about decade of her life, she had health problems that were constantly a problem for her. And there was one point when she was asked in an interview about her religion, and she said that, well, I've kind of given up the whole pagan thing, and she turned back to her Episcopalianism. Episcopalian being the Church of God, the English version of the Roman Catholic Church that Henry VIII established in simple form. So that she turned back to Christianity. So we don't know the ins and outs of her life. All I know is that it doesn't taint for me the book that she wrote, but for some people it has. I have the ability to separate the two. I may say, well, I don't always do that, though. Like with, there's actors like Robert De Niro. I can't watch any of his movies anymore without knowing the kind of person he is. And the kind of foul things he says, politically speaking. You might agree with his points of view. I don't. But what he has done as an actor is ruin his movies for me. Because he's a little too. So maybe this is what Marion Zimmer Bradley has done. Well, her daughter did for her posthumously. Now, last night we left off. We were talking about GWENHYFAR. And we talked about how she married. We were right thick in the whole idea of this narrative theory that is expressed very well in Marion Zimmer Bradley's books. And we made some comparison, even in modern day, when we look at marriage today, we see some tendrils of that old archaic narrative that slip in about ownership of women and so on. Who gives this woman to this man? Well, the father always says, I do, or her mother and I, has become a modern change in there. And so we still have something as simple as a phrase like that in our traditions of what we would call a traditional wedding in the West, still has the tendrils of the old narrative in there, which is women were property of the father, then property of the husband. And we left off last night talking about how after Guinevere is welcomed as Arthur's wife and his queen, it appears that she has these three important commitments in her life. And this is in the novel. By the way, we mentioned that Marion Zimmer Bradley's novel, The Mists of Avalon, is one that's offering up a counter story to the narrative of the women in King Arthur's life. And this was the Priestesses of Avalon. And so she said in her book, she kind of puts forward that Guinevere has these three important commitments in life. And one is her love and loyalty to Christian values in the 5th century AD, Britain. The second is her duty to Arthur. And the third is her love and loyalty to Lancelot, which, unfortunately for her, the first two commitments utterly conflict with the third. And her commitment to the maintenance of the master narratives to Lancelot, to pious Christian women and loyal wife of her king, they're in direct opposition to her commitment to Lancelot, the love she had for him. So she had to sacrifice that. And in fact, it drives her to madness, as expressed in an increasing fanaticism about Christianity. Her increasing expression of that. So like Morgaine, Guinevere maintains this negative self-narrative. It's fraught with self-deception. Her mind is so weighed down by it that she associates her inability to produce an heir with a moral failure on her part. We've seen that down through the ages in various stories as well. She projects her feelings of hurt, her inadequacy onto Arthur, assuming that he feels the anger she feels about failing in her duties as queen. And she concludes that Arthur never wanted her in the first place and believes that he thinks her as useless as she feels. Hence, last night when we talked about oppression often infiltrates a person's consciousness so that that person comes to operate from their own point of view as her oppressors want her to, rating herself as they rate her. And so if a counter story moves her to see herself as competent moral agent on her own, she might be less willing to accept others' oppressive valuations of her. And this too allows her to exercise her agency more freely. Evidence suggests that Arthur thinks of her, Guinevere, in a more flattering light than she sees herself. Yet due to the oppressive master narrative under which she operates, that master narrative of 5th century Britain, and the narrative of worthlessness that she creates to help explain them, that's confirmed by her inability to carry out her duties as a queen. She believes Arthur thinks her worthless too. And her first-person narrative is self-deceiving. This is what we talked about when we started talking about self-esteem, a much overused term in psychobabble these days. But this is what forms that self-esteem. the person starts to take on and act in ways that are in league with the way other people want her to think of herself. That's a mouthful, but did you get that? A master narrative tells you how you must be and the kind of person that you truly are. And when you start operating by that master narrative, you have taken on the master narrative, and it is now your narrative about yourself, no matter how true or false that narrative might be. And it's self-deceiving. The institutions that upheld patriarchy, such as the church, damaged, well, in the story's case, Guinevere's identity by curtailing her agency, her ability to operate on her own thinking. And it disallowed her one thing in the world that she wanted most of all, it seemed: sexual autonomy. She didn't want to be married off to the king, but her father, whose property she was, sold her as property to the king for a political alliance. She wanted to be in love with the Lancelot character. She wanted that sexual autonomy. And so in promoting the master narrative that said that women were mere temptresses and channels through which the devil could work evil because of Eve in the Garden of Eden, the church encouraged Guinevere and other women to think of themselves in such a way. That, now we're talking about fictionalized characters here in these legends, these cycles of Arthur. That's a fictionalized story. But Bradley wrote this story to speak of self-autonomy, self-agency, not being trapped within the social narrative or the master narrative of your times. And nowhere is this better illustrated than in a small section of the novel involving a discussion of women and harps. A courtier mentions to Morgaine that he would not let his daughter play the harp as she does because it might encourage her to step out of her place. Stepping out of her place to play the harp? The harp is an instrument of agency. Indeed, Guinevere replies that she was beaten once for touching a harp. She's never had that opportunity to learn to play the harp, which could have helped produce an empowering counter story to the narrative in which she was raised and living. Now, playing the instrument would have allowed her the chance to think of herself outside of the master narrative that imprisoned women within narrowly defined roles. But the impulse to develop this counter story was beaten out of her. Now, this is, again, it's a fictional story we're talking about, but put yourself in that world. This is the world that existed in 5th century Britain. There was the master narrative. And we know that her father didn't want her to buy into a counter story that would have allowed her to develop her own agency. So in addition to growing up in Avalon, being allowed to sing and play an instrument afforded Morgaine the opportunity to develop a counter story. And this was what in Bradley's book, Avalon was all about. These priestesses of Avalon, it was their counter story to the master narrative. Guinevere's never been introduced to one to the benefit of patriarchal Britain, represented by her father. Morgaine may have had issues with feeling ugly because she didn't fit the master narrative. She was dark-skinned, dark-haired, and of darker complexion. I'm sorry, dark-haired. I didn't want to give the impression that she was of African-American birth or a person of color. She was more Pictish in the way she was displayed, shorter, dark hair, not fair, milky white skin like the blonde-haired, blue-eyed Guinevere. And so she had the opportunity to develop her own counter story in Avalon. According to this story, Guinevere had never been introduced to that benefit of patriarchal Britain. She was allowed the ability to develop skills that women of the mainland were not. Harp playing for Morgaine was a counter story that allowed her to see herself more than just an object of beauty. Same thing with Guinevere. This was something that fell outside just being the object of beauty, but she was denied that. Michelle Cannon Free in the chat room says, Avalon, heard it today. So I'm not sure what that was about, but yeah. Damn, Scotty, I like how you did your name, says Paul Roney. Well, thanks, Paul. I'm not sure what you meant there. Niall Parkinson in the chat room says it's ironic that the truth of these matters is explained through fiction. Isn't that the truth? That's the way sometimes we have to approach things. We tell stories, even invoking Jesus like you did earlier, Niall. Part of his teaching was to tell parables, to tell stories, illustrations. My old pastor used to call them word pictures. I'm going to give you a word picture on this concept I'm trying to get across. And this is how this was taught to us. Now, in the end, Guinevere is forced to give Lancelot up. And not only has her identity and her sense of agency been damaged by years of oppressive master narratives, but those narratives, the most damaging being the one that associates her barrenness with her evil desires for Lancelot. Oh, how many times have we encountered the religious set that will say the bad things in our lives are due to the fact that our hearts are not in the place where they must be with God, that we're thwarting God's word, etc. That just enrages me because I've experienced that firsthand. I had friends who very early on in my life, and when I was in my 20s, they had twins, and those twins were sick, and they died within the first few days. And the woman who I knew, I knew them both. They were both very dear friends of mine. She told me privately that because she had had an affair once early in their marriage, and they were still young. They were in their 20s, but early in their marriage, she'd had an affair. She made it right. She confessed it to her husband. They got back together. They stayed together. And she said, God is punishing me for having an affair by taking the lives of my children. I deserved this. Is that not a master narrative if you have never heard one? And she adopted that master narrative, and it became her narrative about herself. That because I had an affair and I made it right with my husband, which is all you need to do, God still punished me by taking the lives of my children. And she believed that. That's sad. So Guinevere in the story was damaged by these years of oppressive master narratives. Her evil desires for Lancelot was the reason God cursed her with barrenness, is what her belief became. That played a part in her leaving the court forever. She, a woman with the highest post in the land, the queen in the land, is unable to escape pernicious master narratives by creating a subversive counter story. She can't even do that because of the master narrative. Her story ends in sadness and utter tragedy. And Morgaine, on the other hand, has access to such a counter story and is able to change her understanding of herself. She's given social and material support and comes out of a society, even one so used to damaging women's self-narratives, with her own positive counter narrative intact. Now, whether Marion Zimmer Bradley intended to or not, by exposing the West to her version of the King Arthur myth, she also presented this possible counter narrative that women could adopt in their own lives. In providing a positive counter narrative for Morgaine, readers are exposed to a new narrative. It challenges the patriarchal notions of womanhood, normality, and beauty. And so in showing how patriarchal master narratives damage Guinevere, Bradley invites a modern audience to think about the ways patriarchy finds its way into their own self-narratives. And so in our last minute or so here before we've got to sign out of here, I got to ask you, are you taken by the master narrative? Do you operate under that? When I have talked about uninculcating yourself from the church, it isn't because I hate the church or I hate God or I hate Jesus, because I says these have become agencies of master narratives. Our country has master narratives. Our societies, our cultures have master narratives that drive us to believe certain things about ourselves. And I need to ask you, are you believing what you need to believe about yourself? Are you offering yourself a counter narrative to what's out there? Matt Finn says there's some association of pagan worship practices with the evergreen tree. But I believe symbolism of what it means to in your heart. Sorry, that was a different topic within the topic. You guys are chatting in the chat room. Niall makes a great point here, and we might have just enough time to read it. Shakespeare, for example, was not a person, but a conglomerate of writers. You wish to change history and distort it through the filthy detritus of the day. It was propaganda of the Middle Age. Now, I happen to think Shakespeare was a guy. Single guy. But there you go. We'll talk about that another time. Folks, I want to thank you for being here tonight. I want to thank you for giving me your time, for always showing up, for being over there in the chat room. And we got to sign off now. We got to get out of the radio side of things. Stick around, and we'll start the captain's cabin afterwards. Live long and prosper, folks.
You're listening to the Intrepid radio program with Scotty Roberts. Intelligent talk.
All right, folks, we are officially done on radio. Thank you. Did you get to talk to Bryn? She didn't answer. Okay. Did she text you back?
No.
Okay. She's probably sleeping, not feeling too well. So, I love you too. Good night. I'll see you in the morning. All right, folks, that was our show for tonight. I need to cut off the my connection to the stream. Boom. That's done. I need to stop the audio recording, which we were 4 minutes into before we actually got that going, because I forget these things. I got to push all these buttons. It's just my way. And now the rain's coming down pretty hard. I hear it outside. So good night, Rowan, says Barbie D. She's already in her room. Sweet Dreams, says Uncle Dave. She's gone already for the night, guys. So why don't you guys sit tight for 1 minute? It's going to be a commercial break in which I urinate. So you guys sit tight. I'll be right back. I'm just going to leave this all up. All right, I'm back. And this is the Captain's Cabin portion of the show. Arr. I always like to do that. Arr. Captain's Cabin. I still think of what are my reasons for the after show? asks Niall. I think, Niall, it's because when we went back to this new format, I'm locked into 52 minutes for the show, and there are certain, for the most part, I'm free, 99.9% free to do and say the things I want, but there's some things I have to be careful of, certain language and stuff like that. That's not the reason for the captain's cabin. It's that sometimes we just want to extend the thought out, or we just want to talk and chat a little bit. For me, it's a little bit of, if you will, you watch a good episode of something or even a bad episode of something, and you wish you could talk to the people who are part of it. Part of this is just to extend the thoughts, extend people's input if they want to give it, because we can't always squeeze it all into the 52 minutes. So I kind of like the Dave Potter. Like Dave Potter right here says, Scotty, you're wrong. Shakespeare was not a single guy. He was married to Anne Hathaway, but not the Anne Hathaway that we now know, a different Anne Hathaway from before. a 16th century Anne Hathaway. So, yes, I agree with you, Dave. So there you go. Niall, that's why I started the captain's cabin. Now, I didn't name it. I let you guys name it. And that's what it came up as. Captain's cabin. There we go. So, I try, but it's hard to monitor myself, says Paul Roney. So, Elizabeth was married to England, the Virgin Queen. Yeah, but she wasn't married to Shakespeare, though. So we were talking Shakespeare. Shakespeare wrote for her, I think. I am not one of those, although I've talked about it on this radio show in the past. I don't know if we even talked about it. I think it was when John Ward and I were doing the Intrepid radio program back in 2013 to 2017. We did the Intrepid radio program. And I think in there we had interviewed the author of, I don't even remember the name of the book, but somebody who was putting forward the case that the Earl of Oxford was actually writing Shakespeare's plays, and Shakespeare was some doofus bit actor in the theaters with buck teeth that didn't know how to write his own name practically. So I don't know about all that. So anyway, Trains of Thought extended. Yeah, that's pretty much it, Niall. Trains of Thought extended. Dave Potter and I, Uncle Dave, we tend to now do a we've only done it 2 weeks in a row, so it's not quite a thing yet. But Friday nights after the show, we've gone as much as 3 hours after the show, still going here in the chat room, talking about various things. So, and then we did it last Friday, and we'll probably do it again this Friday. So there you go. That's what the after show is for. It's kind of an after show. And well, I'm just thinking it's Tuesday night. Tomorrow I'm on the road all day tomorrow. So I gotta go visit a client tomorrow. That's 3 hours away. And I gotta try to be there by 9:30. So I gotta leave here at 6 a.m. and then be back before 5 o'clock tomorrow night. So 6 hours on the road, but trust me, folks, it's going to be worth it for me and my business and my family. So it's a good project coming in, and I'm going to see him. He could have come. I could have waited till Friday, and he could have come to my place on Friday. But I thought, no, let's just do this on Wednesday. I'll get on the road and go do it. So, that's the new book I'll be writing, by the way. Very different book from any of my other books. It's an autobiography that I'm helping to write. So it's really a biography. He says, look, I don't want to cancel you out. He first asked for a ghostwriter. He says, no, I'd rather you get credit for this. He said, how would we do that? And I said, just say the book is by you, your name, and with Scotty Roberts. He goes, I like that. Let's just do that. He says, it's not a big secret that I don't know how to write. So there you go. Yeah, it's a long ride. I've done it before. You go 3 hours there and 3 hours back. It's like going from here, where I live in western Wisconsin, to Madison, Wisconsin, which is about 3.5 to 4 hours from here. People look at the map, they go, oh, you're only an inch apart on the map. But it's still a 3.5 hour trip. It's one road, one interstate highway you follow all the way down, like you're going to Chicago. And you just veer off and go south for a couple of miles into Madison, Wisconsin. And Dave Potter and I painted a mural back 5 years ago. That was 5 years ago in January, Dave, that we did that in a little Mexican cantina in quaint downtown Madison, Wisconsin, the capital city of Wisconsin. And right down at the end of the street was the big domed Capitol building for the state of Wisconsin. And we spent better part of 4 days there painting the murals on the cantina there. And it seems like yesterday. That was already 5 years ago. And that was, I remember, like Dave and I tend to do an awful lot when we did big murals in places. We tend to sleep on site sometimes, curl up in a corner so we can meet a deadline, or we had a hotel and we shared a hotel room and we went and slept for a while, come back and paint. And we did that on the Masonic Lodge, where we painted 168 linear feet of wall to make it look like the interior of an old medieval castle on top of cinder block. So we painted 3D looking stonework and painted shields and all kinds of stuff on the walls. And Dave did the ceilings on the walls and all of that. And we painted all the thin pine cheap bathroom doors, closet doors and stuff that were put up in the main hall there, or the main hallway. And we painted those to look like weathered oak wood with iron bands bolted to them and things like that. And so we did that all. And we slept on site at the Masonic Hall. I would go into the blue room and I would curl up on a padded bench there and sleep for a while. So that was a good time. Matt Finn, good to see you. You're off to get some sleep. Good night, Intrepid crew. We'll see you back here tomorrow night. There you go. Well, maybe we'll share some pics of the Masonic Hall on Friday. I've still got some somewhere. They're up on my website under my mural section. But yeah, you can go look at those things. And so in the balmy winter, we sat outside and drank beer in our t-shirts. That's right. It was January, and it was actually rather balmy when it should have been below zero. So we sat outside and drank beer and ate lunch one day outside at the table. And because it was nice outside. That was nice. And then it was only, by the way, we did that, I don't remember what weekend, but it was about 2 to 3 weeks later when I had my first heart attack and I had the open heart surgery. So that's how I kind of earmarked those two events. Were kind of Francisco's Cantina was the name of the place, by the way. And the sad thing is, after all that beautiful painting work, Francisco's went under a couple of years ago, maybe even 3 years ago. 2 years after we painted it, those murals probably just all got painted over, gone. So, my best friend in the world is a man you know well, Shawnee Momini. Yes, I know him well. And I've spoken for at least 24 hours straight over the last 6 months. A big fan of yours. Oh, thank you. Thanks to Shawnee. Love Shawnee. And I want to get him to build a drafting table for me that I have to have him price it out for me and everything, but I want to get a nice drafting table done. That is one I can stand behind, that has drawers. I want drawers about 18 inches to 2 feet wide that are maybe 30 inches deep and flat and maybe about 4 inches tall, but drawers lining 2 sides. Place where my legs, of course, can go underneath in front, but where I can also kick out the chair and stand if I want to. And with an adjustable top, but I want it to look like furniture as well. I told him I can buy something like that at the store for a couple of $100, but it looks like metal and formica. I said, I want this out of, iron and wood and something to look just magnificent. So he's pricing that out for me. So Shawnee is, if you want to see his work, go check him out. And what else we got? And I didn't know he was your best friend, by the way, Niall. That's very cool. That's good to know. So we've got 11 people still here in the chat room that we can see anyway. And by the way, the reason for the long, narrow drawers is to lay flat art. You'd be familiar with this, Niall, because you paint and you draw. It'd be nice to have a place with, and I was thinking if they're only 4 inches and you're doing them from, a few inches off the floor and up, you can fit maybe 10 drawers or more on either side. So you've got 20 drawers for flat art, for papers, for notebooks and tablets and supplies, things like that. So that's the reason for the long, narrow drawers, to fit a piece of artwork in there. Like I've got over here, I've got stacks and stacks. I don't know if you can see this from there. Yeah, the mic's in the way, but over here, these stacks and stacks of pads like these, that are, I can even get it out of there. Stuff like that. Just tablets and stuff with Bristol board and things like that. And there's some artwork in here and some boards, that are still taped together, illustration board and stuff, because I don't have the kind of drawer system or a table cabinet to put those things in. So I'm going to have him do that for me. He is the man. He's an expert of serious tableware. Yeah, he is. He's pretty amazing. You can go look him up. What's his Instagram? That's a good place to see some of his work. I think he does it under. I'm not thinking Wolf something. Damn it, I can't remember the name of his company. Wolf and let's see if I can find him on here with his name. Shawnee Momini. He's got it under his name, Shawnee Momini. So if you go here, I'm going to copy that. If you're on Instagram, where am I? StreamYard. Go here, and you can see his work. So go to Instagram, and that's his moniker over there. And I couldn't remember if he had it up by his company name or not. But go over there, and you can see some of his work. He does fantastic work. So you have to go take a peek. Yeah. I'm just scrolling through looking at some of his stuff right now. So there you go. There's that. And what else do we have to talk about? Probably not so much tonight. I'm not going to do a late night tonight because I want to get up early and hit the road tomorrow. Which is going to be pretty easy to do. I'll probably just throw everything. I don't have much to even bring along. I'm not going to bring my computer along this time. I'm just a notebook, and I'm going to sit down and we'll talk about the book with the man. Niles says, yes, Scotty, my bro from Tennessee is my anchor, my confessor, the most intelligent man I've ever met. He knows more about me than I do about myself. That is a good friend to have. I've always been a big, thank you, Wolf and Hammer. That was the logo. Yep, I did his logo with the wolf. It's maybe more involved than most logos I would do. I tend to get away from using lots of pictures and logos and more symbols and things to make them, I don't know, graphically erudite as opposed to pictures and things. But there were certain elements he wanted. The wolf with the tail on fire. And so we just put together something that worked for him. Yeah, that was fun. Winds at 30 miles an hour, gusting to over 50 miles an hour here. In it says Steve Clark living over there in Tornado Alley. So in Kansas and Oklahoma area is Tornado Alley. Down to Texas. Who we got? Oh, Johan.
Good here. That was the first.
You okay over there? Maybe not. That might not be Johan. I'll remove him until he verifies. It says Johan Johnston. So I thought that was our friend Johan. Either somebody has Johan, if that's really you, type something over in the chat room and I'll let you in. Again, that didn't sound an awful lot like Johan. So but thank you for trying. A for effort. Or is that E for effort? So bedtime says Paul Roney. And good to have you here, brother. Glad you're in here. And so somebody, by the way, hijacked Johan's password or something over here in order to get in and be able to comment on this or send me a link for video feed. You have to have subscribed to the channel. I set it up that way so we don't get the spam accounts calling in, the trolls. That's right, Matthew Sainsbury. At least they were happy. All right, guys, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to call it quits, too. We're going to make this one an early night because I got to get up and travel in the morning and earlier in the morning. So hopefully it's not raining too hard in the morning for the kids. Not that they're going to melt, but I don't like them to have to walk to school when it's still a little cool out and it's raining. There's nothing more miserable than showing up to school soaking wet. Even though you've got a raincoat on or an umbrella or whatever, it can be a pain in the ass. And I like them to, I give them a ride on those days. But it's getting to be the weather where they can walk all the time now. So anyway, there you go. Anyway, thank you, Barbie D. I appreciate that. And that's it. That's all we got. So you guys all have a good night. I will see you tomorrow night for our show, and we'll carry on from there. So live long and prosper, guys, and I'll see you tomorrow night. Bye.